What if I told you that one of the key components to manifestation is something that you think you have, but you really don't? Because 95% of people, if asked, will say that they have this quality, but in reality, studies show the figure is actually closer to 15%. Stick around, find out what I'm talking about. Hi, I'm Marna. Thank you for joining me. So today we're talking about a key quality for putting your manifesting into your control. And that quality is self-awareness. Now, I know, you're sitting here going, I'm aware of myself. If I wasn't aware of myself, I wouldn't be doing the energy work I'm already doing. I wouldn't understand all this quantum field stuff you keep talking about, right? Right, we all think this. 95% of people believe that they are self-aware. But the truth is, when you start doing in-depth studies, when you start asking them the hard questions, it's closer to about 15% of us that actually know what's going on. So, in this video, we're going to talk about what self-awareness is, what the two major types of self-awareness are, and we'll go through 9 action steps that you can take to increase your self-awareness, which in the end will increase your manifesting ability. Stick around to the very end and I'll have a free gift for you. All right, let's dive right in. So what do I mean by self-awareness? What is self-awareness to begin with? There are 2 main types of self-awareness. There's internal and external. External self-awareness is understanding how everyone sees you. And this is the one that most of us are actually pretty good at. We have a generally fairly decent understanding of how we are perceived by other people. Internal self-awareness, though, is the inward understanding of your values, your passions, your aspirations. And that one is one where we tend to fall down a bit. If I came up to you and asked you what your passion is, would you immediately know? Or would you have to sit there and think about it? Even worse, would you sit there, think about it, and then say, I don't know, I guess I don't really have one? Because that is a stunning lack of internal self-awareness. And without knowing who you truly are on the inside, you really can't bring your manifestations into your life. You must have this understanding to be able to create the reality that you desire. So why are we so bad at this? What is it that keeps us from being self-aware? The thing is, we all naturally have blind spots. We are hardwired to work on autopilot, completely unaware of what we're doing or why. And then there's the feel-good effect. We're happier when we see ourselves in a more positive light. Now, for a lot of people, this is, little white lies we tell ourselves. Some people, it can go straight into full-on self-delusion. And then the last reason that we tend not to be internally self-aware is the cult of self, the idea that we've become so self-absorbed as social media has exploded in popularity that we are deliberately cutting ourselves off from exploring our internal self so that we won't be perceived as being self-absorbed. Talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face. If you don't know who you are, then how are you going to change anything about your life? So, let's talk about what we can do to become more self-aware as individuals. And first thing is, give up on this whole notion of how you're being perceived on social media. They're seeing whatever you're putting out. If what you're putting out is your internal, in-depth exploration of yourself, go for it. That does not make you self-absorbed. That makes you self-aware. That makes you conscious and cognizant of the changes you need to make in your life to have the life you truly desire. There is nothing wrong with that. So let's go on to our 9 steps. I'm breaking these steps down into 3 categories. The first 3 are thought-based, thought exercises that you can do to immediately begin changes. The next 3 are ways that you can enhance your perspective without having to so much take action yet. And then the last 3 are concrete action steps to take. So let's get into this. The first thing you need to be doing is asking yourself what instead of why. You see, when you focus on why, you're highlighting your limitations. You're getting bogged down with negative emotions. When you look at what, then you are forcing yourself to obtain practical information. So by asking yourself what instead of why, you're focusing your mind in a more positive direction. So instead of saying, why is this thing happening to me? Ask yourself, what can I do about this situation? Instead of saying, why am I not manifesting the money that I need? What can I do to bring that money into my life? Why am I alone? What can I do to open up my life to having more friends and lovers? You see the difference, the shift in perspective that just comes from that one simple change, going from asking yourself why to asking yourself what. It puts you in charge of the situation, and it allows you the level of introspection where you can start seeing the changes you can make in your life. The next thing to do, notice patterns, particularly patterns of emotions, patterns of conflicts in your life. If a pattern is repeating, then the pattern is repeating for a reason. Are you having the same relationship over and over with different people? Well then, honey, the problem isn't them. The problem is in you. It is how you are showing up for yourself. It is what you are accepting in your life. And then we go back to, instead of asking, why is this happening? What can I do to change it? What can I do to break this pattern of behavior that is having a negative effect on my life? If your pattern is as soon as money comes into your hand, you spend it, don't ask yourself, why am I like this? What can I do to set up a savings plan? What can I do to make sure that this money stays in my account long enough for me to reach this goal? Again, keep making that shift. And the third thing you can do, thought-wise, have a check-in and a daily reflection. And this does not have to be anything formal. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It doesn't have to be anything that you even tell anyone about. But for 5 or 10 minutes before you go to bed, review your day. Look at the patterns. Look at situations that you could have handled differently. Ask yourself what you can do to make the next day different, to keep from repeating those negative patterns. Again, this is the thought process. This is changing how you think on a fundamental level so that you are more aware of your internal processes and the patterns of behavior that you are already exhibiting. Now, on to the next 3. These are things that you can do. They are action steps, but they are easy action steps. There's no huge commitment involved in them. So if you're just getting into this whole changing your life thing, these are the easy steps to take. Although some of them require a bit of vulnerability, and that can be difficult for people. But yeah, the first one, talk to your friends. Have your friends ask you questions. The idea isn't that your friends are necessarily smarter than you are or more in tune with you, but they are a different perspective. So if you ask your friends, and trust me, if you ask your best friend this, you will get an earful. What am I doing wrong in all my relationships? Why do they always leave? Why does nothing work out? I can guarantee you your best friend is going to have a perspective on that and will happily share it with you. Pay attention to these outside perspectives because they are seeing things in a way that you fundamentally haven't. And you can incorporate the truths from these outside perspectives into your understanding of yourself. Now that does lead to a lot of vulnerability. You're opening yourself up to what could sound fairly critical depending on where you are in life and how your life is going. Be willing to be vulnerable. Be willing to accept criticism. Be willing to recognize that what is being said to you is being said because someone wants to see you have a better life. That awareness should help keep the defensiveness down. And if you find yourself being defensive about something, look really, really closely at what it is that you're being defensive about and why. How is this statement challenging your perceptions of yourself and why? And then ask yourself what you should do about that. This leads into the next step. Ask for feedback. I know it sounds really simple, but it's important to note feedback does not always come in the form of something negative. It is not always something we need to improve. Feedback could be, I really, really admire the way that no matter how tough things get, you always persevere through it. I've had people say that to me. And trust me, having someone give me that positive feedback really did change my outlook because I went from all of this bad stuff happens to me and I'm drowning under the weight of it to I've gotten past all of the bad stuff so far. I can get past this next thing. So ask for that feedback. Both the positive and the negative will have things in it you can learn from as long as you're willing to do so. And the next thing is study human nature and apply what you learn about humanity in general. I mean, there are certain things that we are hardwired for. We are hardwired to belong to a group. We are hardwired to search out the whys in life. Now take all of the things that you learn about human nature and identify how it's affecting you. Identify how those hardwired goals alter your behavior and your expectations. And then find ways to solve those effects in your life. If being hardwired to be part of a group is making you do things that you're uncomfortable with doing so that you'll fit in with the group, then ask yourself, what can I do to change this? What can I do to find a group where I feel like I belong without having to change who I fundamentally am? And going into the last step, these are the things that are going to require action and commitment on your part. But they are also the things that are going to have the most obvious, notice I didn't say the most effective, but the most obvious effects on your self-awareness. First is write down what your goals and plans are. By writing down your goals and plans, you are deliberately stating what it is you want. You are developing your awareness of your desires. You're developing your awareness of what you are willing to do to reach your goals. Next, tell your story from the outside perspective. You don't have to talk to another person about this. You can simply write it out if it makes you feel comfortable. But in the third person, tell what happened. It can be helpful to stop yourself along the way and ask this character that you're writing about why you did something, why you handled it this way. There is a huge difference between saying, I was homeless because my husband left me, and saying, Marna spent a year in homelessness working to overcome it after going through this tragedy. Shift that perspective. Ask yourself what it is you did and why. Ask yourself what it is you can do differently in the future. Because I can guarantee you, I'm never letting a bad relationship leave me homeless again. Because that is one of the things I am changing in my self-awareness. And my last tip, journal. Write things down to become more self-aware. Don't ever question what you're writing about. Don't dwell on it. Just write down. Doesn't have to be every day. In fact, sometimes it works better if it's not every day, because if you tell yourself you're doing it every day, you're putting pressure on yourself. But write down the story. Write down what happens to you. Write down the big events. Keep writing it down, as long as you have the words in you to write. And trust me, the more you do it, the easier this gets. If you have trouble remembering to do it, set yourself a reminder. Yeah. It doesn't have to be every day. Every 2 or 3 days, have an alarm go off and say, oh yeah, I need to write down what I've been going through the last few days. Find a time of the day when you have, an extra 5 minutes to just jot down the notes of what happened during the day. Find alternative ways to journal. It doesn't have to be written down on a piece of paper. You could keep notes in your phone. You could write a blog entry. Whatever works for you. This is not an exercise to demonstrate to anyone else. This is you knowing yourself, asking yourself questions, identifying the patterns, and then being able to act on them. We all know that becoming more self-aware will benefit us, but we put up blockers to learning more about ourselves because we are afraid of what we're going to find. Yeah. The reality is, self-awareness is something that we all can develop, and it doesn't take that much effort to do it. So, I did promise you a free gift, didn't I? If you would like to have my free PDF on manifesting, drop me a line, marnarenee@gmail.com. I will happily get it sent out to you. And then we can sit there, and if you have any questions about manifestation, why your manifestations aren't quite working the way you expected them to, let me know. I'm more than happy to work with you on that. So, I am Marna. Back here is Boober. Boober would like to remind you to please boop the like button. Thank you. And thank you for joining us.